And welcome back to the program. Just before the break there, I was talking about how there's this worldwide movement to slow down. Yes, slow down. You move too fast. In the book In Praise of Slow, How a Worldwide Movement is Challenging the Cult of Speed, author Carl Honore, who was born in Scotland but grew up here in Canada, is actually hometown in Edmonton, examines the modern compulsion to hurry and chronicles a global trend toward putting on the brakes. Carl lives in London with his wife, who is also a writer, and they have 2 children, and joins me on the phone line right now. Carl, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much. Good to be with you.
Yeah, so does it feel good to be on the phone to your hometown of Edmonton?
It always warms the heart. Yep, I was listening to a bit of Edmonton accent there, and it takes me back.
Edmonton accent?
Yeah, I used to have one. I think it's drifted away a little bit on me. I think I've been over here so long, I've gone native a little bit.
Okay, how long have you been in London?
It's coming up for 13 years now.
Wow.
So
do you make it back here very often?
I do. I get back home probably once a year.
Okay.
So yeah, I've got a lot of friends. My family all still live there, so it's still very much on my radar, and it's still my hometown.
Are your family listening right now?
They're on the road, actually. They're in Australia on a holiday.
Oh, okay.
My brother might be listening.
Okay.
My parents are away.
Good. Well, what time is it right now in London? Is it close to midnight?
No, it's after 10. We're only 7 hours ahead.
Oh, 7 hours. Okay. Well, thanks for doing this. I really appreciate it. This is something that is near and dear to my heart because I really think the world is too fast paced. So tell us about the Praise of Slow movement.
Well, the slow movement is really a kind of cultural revolution, if you like. It seems to me that we've wound ourselves up into such a state of frenzy and hurry that we are, as a culture, stuck in fast forward. We're always trying to do more and more things in less and less time. And for a lot of us, every moment of the day now feels like a race against the clock. And the slow movement is not about doing everything slowly, doing everything at the speed of a snail. I can't think of anything worse. I love speed. I live in London, which is a lot faster than Edmonton. I work with deadlines, and I play hockey still, fast sport. I love speed, but the slow movement is about understanding that speed is good sometimes, that fast is good, but that slow is good at other times. It's about relearning the lost art of shifting gears, doing things at the right speed. Another way to think about it is doing things as well as possible instead of as fast as possible.
Yeah, because I think when people think of like slowing down, they think, well, I won't be as productive.
Yeah. Well, this is part of the problem, is that there's such a profound cultural taboo in our society against the very idea of slowness. That slow is a dirty word. It's a 4-letter word. It's a byword for lazy and unproductive and boring and unmodern. And that's one of the biggest obstacles, I think, when people want to slow down, is that even when they can feel it in their bones that it would be good for them, that they would enjoy their lives more and work better even, they're still ashamed. It's almost a guilty secret for people to slow down. And that's really what's so important, I think, about having something like this slow movement, which is putting the flag up for slow and saying, you know what, fast is good, but slow is good too. And this is increasingly the case in the corporate working world, actually, because you think, well, if I slow down, I'm roadkill. But the opposite turns out to be true, that by slowing down at the right moment at work, you actually think a lot more creatively, you're a lot sharper, you're a lot fresher. You're just a better worker, you're a better entrepreneur, you're a better manager, whatever it is. And that message is coming from the big high-tech companies now, too, that IBM, a senior manager there, launched a movement for slow email recently. And you think, well, what's that?
What's slow email?
Email is the fastest thing going. How can you put that in the same sentence as the word slow? But he's just saying a very simple and reasonable thing, which is that email is a wonderful tool, but we need to check it. We need to check it less, use it less. He suggests looking at your inbox twice a day. I personally find that a bit extreme, but twice a day has to be better than twice a minute, which is the way a lot of us live nowadays. And,
exactly.
And that's IBM sending that message. It's not an aromatherapy cooperative. It's the big people in the big high-tech sectors who are starting to say there's too much speed in the system. it's time for some speed limits on the information superhighway.
You know, when you just said that about just checking your email only twice a day, there's people listening to this program right now who have a cold sweat going. You know, it's like, there's no way I could only wait, you know, because you're right, we check it every 2 minutes or you know.
And there are people listening to this program who are probably checking their email as they listen, which is very much the modern condition, is we never seem to do one thing at a time and do it well, fully engaged with all our intention. We're always doing 2 or 3 things at once.
Well, they call that multitasking, and there is this people think that multitasking is, they're the smart individuals. They can do a lot of things at the same time, but really, according to what you're saying here, a lot of times multitasking is not a good thing. You're not doing a lot of things very well.
No,
and if we just slow down and concentrated on one or whatever, we would do that a lot better, right, and be more effective.
Precisely. Exactly. I mean, multitasking is the great myth of the modern world, this idea that somehow it makes you more productive, you get more done in less time, when actually that's not the case. And it's not just me saying that, it's the cutting-edge science brain research shows that the human brain simply cannot think meaningfully about 2 difficult tasks at the same time. It can't do it. You know, you cannot think about your tax return and your child's school report at the same time. The human brain has not had a great leap forward in evolutionary terms since the IT revolution 10 years ago. You know, It just hasn't happened. So the problem, of course, is that we get an adrenaline rush from being plugged in, from being always on, and we're so marinated in this culture of stimulation and distraction that it's become like a drug now, so that when people find themselves on vacation, they have to leave the BlackBerry at home or turn off the laptop, they don't rejoice and think, I could put my feet up now and go to the cabin. They panic. You know, it's because we're almost like junkies, speed junkies, and that's where the problem lies, is in the excess of this speed culture. Speed is great, but if you're going fast all the time, you're heading for a fall.
So yes, technology obviously is playing a big part in this. Where did this whole idea come from? When did this start? People started thinking, wait a minute, we got to put on the brakes here and slow down.
Well, the interesting thing is that when you go back into the history books, you find that through this modern period of the last 200 years, as everything's been accelerating, there has always been a countercurrent, minority voices saying, hang on, wait a minute, maybe all this speed is not all it's cracked up to be. Maybe we should be slowing down. So you think of the transcendentalists, in the States in the late 19th century. A lot of philosophers all the way through the 20th century talked about the importance of even the hippies. That tune out, drop out thing. That was a kind of slow statement being made as well. But what's really happened, I think, in the last few years is that the speed culture has gone so far that it's now really doing us more harm than good. And I don't think that was the case before. I think speed on the whole was doing more good than bad. And now that we've entered the stage of diminishing returns, you find that groups of all stripes are springing up. So there are movements for slow food, which is about getting more pleasure and nutrition from your food by taking time over it. There are slow cities, which are about redesigning the urban landscape so that people can connect with their neighbors and walk and not be persecuted by cars. There are movements for slow medicine, which is about taking more time for patients to relax and be healed properly. There's even slow sex. I want a lover with a slow hand. You remember from the 70s?
That was a 70s song, yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's very much coming back as people go to workshops to relearn the lost art of slow love in the bedroom, because we're even making love, a lot of us, with a stopwatch in our hand.
Wow. Is it true that there's things out there called like speed yoga?
Yeah, well, this is where we are now. I think that the culture is so obsessed with hurry and impatience that we're even trying to speed up things that are
supposed to relax
slow.
you.
And there's a gym near my house that offers an evening course in speed yoga. And I thought, when the brochure came through the front door, I thought somebody had put it there as a practical joke, a friend, but it's true. It's for time-starved professionals who want to salute the sun and bend their stressed bodies into the lotus position, but they want to do it in 20 minutes instead of a whole hour.
Wow.
And I thought speed yoga was the most absurd manifestation of our roadrunner culture until a friend of mine in the States recently got invited to a drive-through funeral.
Excuse me?
Yeah, a drive-through funeral. This is where the church places a coffin in the driveway at the front, and people pull out of the traffic, drive up, roll down the window, say goodbye, and drive off again. It's like picking up a dozen, Timbits at a drive-through Tim Hortons.
Wow. Well, so where are we heading with this? If we don't really recognize this, where are we heading, Carl?
Well, I think that this speed culture is taking a toll on every aspect of our lives, on our diet and health, on the quality of our work, on our relationships. I think that a lot of people now are racing through their lives instead of actually living them. You look at a lot of folks now have 494 friends on Facebook, but when was the last time they actually went to the park and sat there and had a chat with one of them for the afternoon? I think
that's a big one. I've talked about that before, how, people are it's almost like a bragging rights. I have 500 friends on Facebook. Well, really, a friend to me is someone that you can pick up the phone, talk to, you can meet, like you said, in the park, talk face to face with, go out for a game of golf. That's a true friend, someone that you can talk with face to face.
Exactly. And I think that what's happened is that the speed culture always puts quantity before quality. And I think that's the case in everything you do, and especially in relationships. And of course, there are certain things that you cannot accelerate no matter how rushed you are. You can't make someone fall in love with you faster because you're in a hurry. You can't form a friendship more quickly because you have an 11 o'clock meeting. It just doesn't work that way. These things have a natural, universal arc, and they take time. And I think that's why, although we live at a time of extraordinary connectivity, the world is more wired than it has ever been in human history, a lot of us feel very alone. And I think a big deal of that, a big part of it is the speed culture. And lastly, just look at the big picture where we are now. Just pick up any newspaper or look at any news website and look at the catastrophic, apocalyptic mess that our economy is in. And I tell you, if some of those bankers on Wall Street had slowed down a little bit long enough to think about what they were investing in or to read the small print on those derivatives contracts, I'm not so sure we'd be in the same mess we are in now. That's kind of like the final ultimate expression of the economy and capitalism just gone way too fast. So even for its own good.
Oh yeah. So what inspired you to write In Praise of Slow? Was this something personal in your life that you just decided, you know what, I need to slow down, and then you did some research on this?
It was very much. For me, there was a moment of personal epiphany. It was when I started reading bedtime stories to my son, and I just used to go into his bedroom at night, and I couldn't slow down. So I'd be sitting on his bed, speed reading Snow White, and we were constantly quarreling, and he'd say, why are there only 3 dwarves in the story?
I thought there were 7.
Grumpy. Yeah. and so what I knew from being read to by my own parents, that this should have been the most relaxed, intimate, magical, tender moment of the day when a dad sits down to read to his little boy. It just was a battle of wills, war between my speed and his slowness. And this went on until I caught myself speed reading a newspaper article with time-saving tips for fast people like me to go even faster. One of those tips talked about a series of books called the 1-Minute Bedtime Story. So Snow White in 60 seconds.
Yeah, you know what? I was going to mention that. Somebody sent me that book. The publisher of that company sent me that book to give away. It was like months and months ago. And I looked through this, and it was like all these popular nursery rhymes and bedtime stories. You're right. In less than a minute.
Paragraph.
Yeah, exactly. I couldn't believe it. I thought, what's this saying,
Well, that was me. I read those words, and my first reaction was, hallelujah! What a great idea! I'm going to get the whole set FedEx to me tomorrow from Amazon. But then it was, the second moment was thankfully, the light bulb over the head in the cartoon scenario, and I just thought, whoa, has it really come to this? Am I really in such a hurry that I'm prepared to fob off my son with a soundbite at the end of the day? And that was when it was like one of those moments when you suddenly see yourself in sharp relief, and it wasn't a pretty spectacle. And that was the starting point. I began investigating not only my own addiction to going fast, but the bigger picture, and that was the spark for writing the book.
And what did you find when you did your research? Did you find there's other people out there who would welcome something like this?
Yeah, I traveled all the way through the Far East and North and South America and Europe for this, and I found myself having the same conversation with people everywhere. And I think that we have reached a particular moment in human history. If I had set off on this journey, I think 15 years ago, this whole idea of a slow movement and a slow revolution would have been of interest to a few New Age gurus and some burned out executives after their first heart attack. But today you go out and everybody, all I had to do is just say, well, I'm investigating this phenomenon of speed culture and not having enough time, and everybody's face just lit up with stories in the nurse, the soccer mom, the radio presenter,
yep.
Journalists, doctors. We all feel like we have been infected by this virus of hurry.
And it's like we don't know what to do about it. We don't know what to do about it. It's almost like we have to keep up with everybody, or we feel like we're gonna fall behind, or we can't. We got to get the kids off to soccer. We got to do this. It's a cultural thing that it's hard to turn this around. So what's it going to take to turn this around?
It's very hard to do, and that's absolutely right. That it's so it's almost become hardwired into us now that we have only one speed, we have only one choice, and that's full speed ahead. And if you slow down for a moment, you're toast. And it makes it very difficult to slow down, even though we want to. But I think that more and more people now are realizing that is just not a way to live a life, that you end up reaching the first red light first, or you're reaching an early grave first. And what kind of life is that? So I think that the conversation around this is getting more and more vivid, and more people are finding ways to step off the treadmill and to keep the speed when it makes sense, but to slow down. So I think there are three things that everybody can do to start slowing down. And the first is simply to do less. You know, it's very simple, but it's incredibly countercultural because we're always being told to have it all.
But how will others look at you when you start doing less? Aren't you going to be looked at as, oh, he's lazy, or he's not pulling his weight, you know, whether it's in the workplace or whatever? So how do others react to even that?
Others are surprised, perplexed, sometimes even threatened. But I think that more and more when people explain, I think that the danger is that you just suddenly slow down unilaterally without explaining why. And then you're going to be in trouble because you're going to look like a freak. But I think that more when people slow down by explaining, you know, I'm not going to accept this social invitation this weekend because I got 3 others that I'm going to, instead of trying to do all 4, or I'm going to turn down this work assignment, or I'm going to ask for 3 more days for the deadline. But you explain why. And what I've discovered, not only in my own life, but from the many people I hear about around the world, is that it's almost like piercing this wall of silence, and you find out that everyone else in the office probably is thinking exactly the same thing.
Okay, yeah.
And it gets easier once someone breaks the ice.
Okay, that was number 1. Slow down and do less.
It's just do less.
Okay.
You know, less is more.
Okay.
Number 2, gadgets, you know, iPhones, cell phone, great, you know, wireless laptop, but they all come with a little red button that says off. And we have to push that button, and this is a big problem nowadays. But once you do, it's a liberation. Again, you have to explain to people you're not going to be available all the time, etc. Mm-hmm. And then the third thing, I think, as a starting point, is to find one little slow ritual, activity that slows you down, that puts on the brakes naturally. Different for everyone. It could be gardening, could be yoga, could be reading. For a lot of women now, it's knitting. You know, for me, it's cooking. Just something that. Because you can get stuck in fast forward very easily in the workplace. You come home, you have something that just allows you to put on the brakes. And I think those are sort of 3 starting points. Right?
All right. Well, if people want to read more about this, the book is called In Praise of Slow. Is it available pretty much everywhere, Carl?
It is indeed, yeah, in 32 languages, I think. But in Edmonton, you can certainly get it in English.
That's good, with the English accent as well.
Yes, right.
Carl,
Edmonton in there, I hope.
All right, Carl, a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thanks. It's been fun. Good night.
All right. There's good night. Yes, it is nighttime in London right now. Carl Honore, the author of the book In Praise of Slow from London, England, here on Life Talk on AM 930 The Light. We're back right after this.